Today we'll try to discuss about S3 object storage. So as we already discussed yesterday, we no need to mount S3. We can access anywhere this data which we upload to S3. So we have created a S3 bucket yesterday. We have created an S3 bucket yesterday. Now we'll try to understand few concepts in S3. If you see, we created an S3 bucket. As of now, we don't have any data. We don't have any objects which we have uploaded to S3. So as we discussed, we can upload from CLI, we can upload from API, we can upload from GUI. So let's I will try to upload some files. So we can create a folders. We can create a folders and maintain the data, and we can upload the files in S3 bucket. Let me try to upload some file. So for now, I'm just uploading the file. You see, each file, each object which we upload will have unique object identifier. Each object which we upload will have a unique identifier and URL. Object URL. If you see, this is the object URL which got for this this object from S3. So you can access this one from anywhere. If you have the URL, you can access this from anywhere. Now by default, these objects are not accessible for anyone. Now I have shared the URL. If you see, we will not be able to access, even though you know the endpoint, you will not be able to access. We will be getting a access denied because this object, this bucket, this object is not public. So we can apply security. We can apply security for the objects which are there in a S3 bucket. If you see by default, if you see this one, this S3 bucket, permissions. If you see, we have these type of permissions, public access. By default, we have disabled all the public access. By default, we have disabled all the public access. We can apply security on S3 objects. We have these type of access permissions which we can manage. Access control lists. If you see this S3 bucket, as of now, we are blocking all the public access. What is the meaning of public access, right? The objects can be accessible from anyone. As of now, we have blocked the public access. That's why we are not allowed to access here. And if required, I can give a public access. I can enable a public access so that from any device or any browser, if someone is trying to access this one, it will be allowed. If you see, I have this object in this bucket. I have this object in this bucket. We didn't enable, we have not given a access to this object. It is blocked. It is blocked. If you want to give a public access, right, you have to allow the public access in a bucket. If you see here, I cannot make this public. I cannot make this object public unless until I enable the public access at bucket level. So I cannot make this object public. I cannot make this object public unless until I enable the public access at the bucket level. This is if I want to give a public access for this object. So let me give public access. I am allowing public access at a bucket level. Now I have enabled public access at bucket level. Then I will make this object I will make this object public. Now, since I have made this public, we can access from anywhere, right? Suppose if you also try to access the object URL which we have given, you should be also able to access this object from anywhere. Since I have given a public access, we are able to access the files, the data which we are maintaining in S3. So then what is this type of security bucket policies, right? So we can give specific policies. I don't want to give public access. I don't want to give public access. I don't want to give access to anyone. So using, we can grant permissions to specific applications or specific IP address or specific IP address or range, right? Using bucket policies. I don't want to give public access, right? I want to give only access to the few people or few applications, few IPs. So I can use bucket policies. Then this access control list, right? We can give permissions to S3, bucket to other AWS accounts. So we can grant permissions to bucket itself. So we can share our S3 bucket with other AWS account. So using ACL, I can grant permissions to my S3 bucket to other AWS account. These two are only object policies. We are trying to give policies to the objects. This is we are trying to give a permissions to S3 bucket itself using access control list. Suppose I want to share this S3 bucket with some other AWS account. This S3 bucket I want to share with other AWS account. So here we have a access control list. Here I can provide access to other AWS account, access for other AWS accounts. So now here I can give a AWS account ID, other AWS account ID, and I can give a permissions like read permissions, write permissions, right? So other AWS account also can manage this S3 bucket. So using ACL, I can give a permissions to S3 bucket. Now, I don't want to make this object public. I don't want to make this object public. So everyone is able to access this object. Since I have given a public access, everyone is able to access the file, whatever I have given now. So if I want to manage specific permissions, right, what I can do here, I can define a bucket policy, bucket policies. So here I can define a bucket policies. So here, suppose let me take some examples here itself. If you see, I can give permissions to specific IP address, right? I want to give access to specific IP address, right? I want to give access to specific application. If the request is coming from some application, then only I want to allow this object access. If you see, so the bucket policies is in the JSON format, in the JSON format. So here, something like this, bucket policy. Most importantly here, this one, resource and action. Resource and action. So action, S3 star. What star represents here basically? All the permissions, read permissions, write permissions, right? All the permissions. And resource, AWS resource. To which resource you are trying to create a policy? To which resource you are trying to create a policy? This is, we call it as ARN. You may have a question something like this. What is ARN in AWS? ARN is basically Amazon Resource name. Each AWS resource will have a unique ARN. ARN is used to identify AWS resource uniquely. So the pattern of ARN, if you observe, right, it will be something like this: ARN, AWS, service name, region name, availability zone name, then resource name. Something like this. This is the pattern. Each AWS resource like EC2, EBS, EKS, every AWS resource will have a ARN. ARN is used to uniquely identify AWS resource. So we are trying to define a policy based on that ARN. Now I want to give a access to only few IP address. I don't want to give a public access for those objects, those files which I am maintaining in that S3 bucket. So I can define a bucket policy to limit the access, to restrict the access to this bucket. Now if you see, this is the ARN of our S3 bucket. Whatever S3 bucket I have created, this is the ARN. So this is my resource, AWS resource. If you observe, the region name and availability zone name is optional for S3. Why it is optional? Because S3 bucket name is unique across AWS. So you will not have a two S3 buckets with same name. So this, irrespective in which region you have S3 bucket, that doesn't matter. So the region name and availability zone name is optional in ARN of S3. Now I have given ARN and I can allow, from specific IP or range, and within that I can deny some, right? If request comes from this IP range, then only the object will be accessible. Within the same network, if some other range, right? If I want to block, I can give this not IP address. So I can block the access or I can allow the access. So as of now, let me just give this access. Now if the request comes from this, then only it will come. So /star. What /star represents? Any object within this S3. Now let me save the changes. I am trying to define a policy, bucket policy. So I have one bucket policy. Now, if whoever is accessing, if their IP address is within this range, then only it will allow. Now, for now, still you will be able to access. Can you guys try from your side? Still you will be able to access. That is because still we have a given public access. We have still public access. So if I block the public access now, let me block the public access now. Then if the request is coming from that range, then only it will allow. So let me block the public access here, permissions. Let me block. Now I have blocked the public access. We will not be able to access. Then who can access? Now I have given a policy, bucket policy. So if the request is coming from this IP range, then only it will work. Now let me see what is my IP address. So this is my IP address. My laptop public IP address. So let me take this IP. Let me edit my policy. Now I am giving something like this. I have given bucket policy as something like this. So now I should be able to access. Now I am able to access. And you guys will not be able to access because we have given permissions only to specific IP. So we can apply security using bucket policies. So you can apply security using bucket policies, something like this. Suppose if the request is coming for some application, I want to give access to only some application, right? I can refer. If the request is coming for this application, for that object, then only I want to allow. If the request is coming from different application, I don't want to allow. So we can use this policies, bucket policies. So you can apply security using bucket policies. So if I want to give multiple, within that network multiple range, right? I can give a range, something like this, some range. So within this range, right, I will be able to access. If request is coming within the range, it will, right? For application, you have to give. For application, you have to give HTTP referrer. Suppose this URL I am referring in some application. Suppose I am developing one application. In that application code, I am referring this URL. Either it will be a HTML file, right? So I am referring this URL in the application. If the request is coming from this application, then only I want to allow, right? You don't need to mention the IP address, right? Application referrer, something like this. And also I can give access to IIM users. I can give access to IIM users, IIM groups, right? If the request is coming from so and so IIM user, then I want to allow, right? So you can apply bucket policies, something like this. You can generate you have a helper here to generate bucket policies also. This is for object level. This ACL is basically if you want to share your S3 bucket with other AWS accounts, you can give a access to AWS account, S3 bucket access to another AWS account using ACL. This way you can apply security for your application, your bucket. So helper, right? Here, when you define bucket policy, here itself, you have a policy generator helper link. Here you can select what service, what action you want to give, right? For what AWS service you want to action, right? Here you need to provide a ARN of your resource, and you can define, you can generate a policy, something like this S3 bucket policy, and what action you want to give, what permission, and the ARN. So you can use this policy generator, which will be given a link here itself. So this way you can apply security. Then there are a lot of other options. We have versioning, we have a storage class concept, we have object lifecycle, we have replication. So this, what is versioning in S3? What is versioning in S3? Suppose I want to maintain all the versions of my objects, all the versions of my objects. Suppose this file got modified, this file got modified. If another one more object with same file got uploaded here, by default, it's not maintaining all the versions. By default, it's not maintaining all the versions. Now suppose another file got uploaded with same name. Is it going to maintain the previous file? Right? Like normal, you are trying to copy some file with same name, already you have a file. What will happen? It will override, it will replace. Here also by default, the object will be replaced. By default, we don't have a versioning enabled. By default, you don't have a versioning enabled. So if required, we can enable the versioning in S3. So all the versions of your objects will be maintained if I enable the versioning. So now let's show that. Let me show that. Here, when I go to S3 bucket in the versioning, if you see, by default, versioning is disabled. If required, I can enable the versioning. Now versioning is enabled. Now all the versions of the objects will be shown here. The current version and the previous versions also. I can see all the versions of objects now. So let me, if you see here now versions, here showing the versions. Earlier this was not displayed because we have not enabled the versioning. So now let me upload. I have enabled the versioning. Now if you see, it will be having multiple versions, both versions. This multiple versions. If you see, this is the previous one, this is the latest version. So after enabling the versioning, right, it will maintain all the versions. There is no limitations. You can upload a number of versions. It will maintain all the versions of your object. So we can enable the versioning. Then there is a storage class concept. What is storage class? Right? We have some storage classes. We have some storage classes like standard, IA, RRS, Glacier. So standard, IA, RRS, and Glacier, right? So these are the storage classes we have. What is storage class? So object will be maintained whenever we are uploading an object. That object will be stored in some physical infrastructure, right? So from some physical, in some physical storage it will store. So based on the storage class, you will get a you will have a performance. You will get a performance while you are accessing the object, right? The performance of your object will be based on the storage class. So if you see by default this object, in which storage class it is stored by default, if you see there is a storage class called standard storage class. By default, this is in this storage class, the object will be maintained or stored. The charges is based on object size. The charges is based on object size and storage class. Under which storage class we are having a object. So what type of objects which we need to maintain, right? The files which we are accessing frequently. The files which you are accessing frequently, we can maintain in standard storage class. In standard storage class, the files which we are maintaining, which we are accessing frequently, we can maintain in a standard storage class, so that we have our object is highly available and you will get a better performance while fast retrieval. So the files which we are frequently accessing, which we can maintain in a standard storage class. By default, this is the storage class, object is getting maintained. Then IA, the name itself is saying infrequent access. Infrequent access. So what is infrequent access? Basically, we can maintain files which we are not accessing frequently. Which we are not accessing frequently in IA. So what is the advantage I can say here? If you are not accessing frequently, you can maintain in IA. So the charges are less. The charges are less compared to the standard. Retrieval, it will be little slow in case of IA. And we have a one more category, RRS, reduced redundancy storage. Reduced redundancy storage. So what type of files we can maintain here, right? Non-critical and reproducible. Non-critical and reproducible data we can maintain in RRS. So reduced redundancy. What is the meaning of reduced redundancy here? There is a chance that there might be a data loss. There is a chance that there might be a data loss if you maintain in RRS. Very less percentage, there is a chance that you may lose your data if you maintain in RRS. So in this right, if you feel your even though you lost your data, right, you will be able to reproduce. S3 99.9999% your objects will be highly available, but there is a chance that if you maintain, there is a data loss. So still why I have to maintain the charges? The charges are very less. The standard charges will be very high. RRS, less charges. I can maintain the data, but there is a chance that you may lose your data. So if you feel your data is not critical, and even though you lost, you should be able to reproduce, then you can maintain in RRS. They are giving all the options, so that based on your requirement, based on your data, you can maintain data in these storage classes. So based on the underlying hardware, right, these options has been provided. So in RRS, why they are saying there is a data loss? Because data will be maintained, data will be maintained only in one availability zone. Only one availability zone, which means only one copy. One copy. In RRS, the data will be maintained only in one availability zone. Only one copy of your data, one copy of your file, right? So, standard, they will be maintained in multiple copies. In standard, they will be maintaining 3 copies. They will maintain minimum in 3 availability zones. So, we will have a 3 copies. So, the data will be highly available and you will have a fast retrieval. Whereas in IA, you can maintain the data, but you will have a less, the retrieval time might be little more. And Glacier. So, Glacier, we can maintain archival data. In Glacier for very less price. We can maintain archival data in Glacier for very less price. Long term and archived data. Like suppose I want to maintain last 10 years of my application log files. Suppose I want to maintain my last 10 years of application log files. Are you going to access your log files frequently like last 10 years, right? We will not access. So I want to maintain for auditing purpose. I want to maintain my last 10 years of application logs for auditing purpose, which you are not going to access every day. So the archival data, the long-term data, I can maintain in Glacier with very less price. But retrieval, the charges are applicable when you read the data or retrieve the data. It takes more time if you want to retrieve. So they are having a storage classes based on number of availability zones they are maintaining the data. I mean to say number of copies they are maintaining the data. So the charges are applicable, something like this. So do I need to manually change this? Suppose this object I am not using very frequently, which is in standard storage class, which is in standard storage class. So do I need to change it manually? Suppose I have hundreds of files are getting uploaded to S3. As we discussed yesterday, in real time, how can we upload? How can we save or retrieve objects, right? As we discussed yesterday, what are the ways we can discuss? What are the ways we have discussed yesterday to upload, right? So we can upload using GUI, CLI, API, right? It is not only like you are going to access using HTTP or HTTPS. You can access using API code from Java code or .NET code or using CLI, right? So based on the requirement, you can access from any way, any mode. Now I don't want to manually change the storage class. Let's assume hundreds of files are getting generated to S3 bucket, are getting uploaded. I no need to manually change the storage class, and it is not possible also. If you see standard, frequently accessed data, IA, infrequent access data, reduced redundancy, right? There is a chance that you may lose your data, Glacier. So you no need to change the storage classes manually, and it is not possible to change also. That is where you have a object life cycle. That is where we have a object life cycle. Using object life cycle rules, we can transit objects from one storage class to another storage class, from one storage class to another storage class. We can also define expiration of objects. Suppose I don't want to maintain the files which are one month old or 1 year old. Suppose I don't want to define, I don't want to maintain the files, the objects which are 1 year old. And also I want to transit my object from one storage class to another storage class. Maybe first 30 days, my requirement is my first 30 days, my object should be there in standard. Next, I want to move it to maybe Glacier or IA. Then we can define a object lifecycle rule. So that AWS will take care, AWS will manage the life cycle of your objects based on the policies which we have defined. Everything is based on the requirement, right? So if your application requirement is you are using S3 bucket and you want to, you have a requirement, you have to delete the objects which are 1 year old and you want to transit your objects, then you can define an object life cycle. Object life cycle rule. So as a DevOps engineer, do I need to take care all these things, whatever we are discussing in AWS, right? As a DevOps engineer, we need to take care. That depends, guys. That depends based on the experience, based on the expertise you have, and based on the project scope, based on the resources in the team also. So there will be a separate teams in some projects, right? You have a lot of roles, right? You have AWS architects, solution architects. You have AWS administrators, right? So some projects will have a dedicated team, dedicated vendor who will manage the infrastructure for us. In some projects, you will have a dedicated team, dedicated vendor who will manage the infrastructure. So they will design the infrastructure. Suppose if you go for a small startup companies, right? If you go for a small startup companies, they may not have a hierarchy in the project, right? They may not recruit more people. In a small startup companies, you should be able to manage infrastructure also. And again, that depends on a lot of things, project fundings, project scope, right? So you no need to worry about these things in most of the cases, but it is good to have. The more number of tools, the more number of technologies you know, you will have a advantage. And at least we should have a at least intermediate level knowledge in what is cloud, what are the services in cloud. As a DevOps engineer, we should at least know 40 to 50% of at least our infrastructure, how to manage infrastructure, how to manage storage. So that's why we are trying to spend some time here to make you understand the concepts in cloud. So now, if your requirement is you have to move your data from one storage class to another storage class, you want to set an expiration, you have to define a object lifecycle rule. So if you see here, as of now, under management in my S3 bucket, as of now, I don't have a object lifecycle rule. So basically, use object lifecycle rule to transit your objects from one storage class to another storage class, or delete the objects after some time period. After some time period. So here I can create a rule, object lifecycle rule. So rule name, like if you want to give some name you give. Now the scope of this rule. So I can apply a rule, this object lifecycle rule, to the entire bucket, all the objects in this bucket. Or I want to limit the scope based on the prefix or tag. Suppose I want to apply this object lifecycle rule, whatever has a prefix of something like this. Whatever file or folders, I have a prefix something like this. So this rule, whatever rule which I am going to define, that will be applicable only the files which are having a prefix of this. Or I can use tags, AWS tags, based on the tags also. So if my object has a tag, something like this, so I can apply an object lifecycle rule, right? You can have prefix. Yes, you can have a multiple prefixes, right? You can define a rule. And based on the tags, if you want to define, you can define. Or I want to define entire bucket. I want to define a rule for the entire bucket, all the objects. I can select this option. Now here, transition. If you see, these are the options. I can transit from one storage class to another storage class of current version of the objects. Current version of the objects from one storage class to another storage class. Something like this. I want to directly move to Glacier. After 30 days, I can define. Or I want to do something like this. This one zone IA is nothing but RRS. After 30 days to RRS. After 60 days to Glacier, I can define something like this. The transition for current objects. If you see, I cannot define like this. I think now they are supporting, but previously the object should be, yeah, I will get an error. If you see, minimum 30 days is required before transiting to any storage class. Minimum 30 days. So I cannot move within 1 day. I will get an error, right? If I want to define an object lifecycle rule, minimum 30 days is required before transiting to this one. So 30 days. It will move to a different storage class. If it will move to a different storage class. Suppose if I want to move the previous versions also, you can directly select Glacier. There is no you have to go step by step. You can directly move to Glacier for after 30 days. You don't need to go step by step also. Based on your requirement, you can directly move to Glacier. This is for current version. Now, if I want to define a rule for a previous version, I can select this option. Again, previous version, something like this. You can directly move to Glacier based on your requirement. This is for previous version. Now, expiration. I want to set an expiration. So I want to maintain only for 1 year, something like this. Now expiration. So the number of days, right? If I say 365, so it will delete the objects after 365 days of the creation. Suppose if I create an object today, if I have uploaded an object today, 365 days from now, right, that object will be deleted permanently. So these are the rules which I can define, object lifecycle rule, so that AWS will manage. What are we trying to achieve with object lifecycle rule? What is the advantage, right? Cost saving, right? So we are trying to save the cost by creating an object lifecycle rule so that AWS will manage the objects based on the defined policy. Now I no need to manually worry it, right? It will be taken care by AWS. This is object lifecycle. Now there is a one more thing called replication. There is a one more concept called replication. What is replication? In general, what is replication, guys? Replication, replicas, duplication, right? So I can replicate this S3 bucket in another region. I can create a replication rule. I can create a replication rule. So this bucket will be replicated. This bucket will be duplicated. So same region replication. It supports cross region replication. Same region replication and cross region replication. So I can replicate this bucket. It's kind of a duplicating this bucket. So I can create a replication rule the way I have created a life cycle rule. I can create a replication rule here. This is my S3 bucket. This is my S3 bucket. I can create a replication rule. Replication rule. So I can create a replication rule. So what will happen? This bucket will be replicated or duplicated. Multiple replicas of your data, your bucket, right? So now something like this, I can give something. Replication. So this is the source bucket which I want to replicate. This is the source bucket which I want to replicate. And again, while creating a replication, again we can apply the scope. Again we can apply the scope whether I want to replicate entire bucket or all the objects or specific objects, specific files. So if I want to replicate entire thing, I can select this, right? So that all the objects will be replicated. Again, destination, same region or cross region, same account or different account. Suppose I want to replicate in same account, different region, same account, different region, or different account, same region or different region. Guys, sometimes they may ask, they may ask a question on this one, right? If they are looking for some AWS resource or AWS scope, then they may ask this question. What is replication in S3? Can I replicate S3 bucket in different region? Can I replicate S3 bucket in different account? Right? So same region replication, cross region replication, we can do in same account or different account. So it supports, right? We can replicate our bucket in a same region or a different region. We can replicate our bucket in same account or a different account also. So here, if you see, if I want to replicate, I need to give a account ID, other AWS account ID. So you will get account ID here. This is my account ID, AWS account ID. If you want to replicate to other account ID, I need to provide account ID here and the bucket name, which is there in the other AWS account. So here, same account. So destination, I need to select. If you see, as of now, I don't have any other bucket except this one, right? So I can create. So I have to create the destination bucket wherever I want to create. Let me again open another tab. So let me create a bucket. Replica. So that bucket, the destination bucket, the replica bucket can be in same region, or if I want to replicate in a different region, Singapore region or any other region, right? I can select that region. Now I am creating a destination, that bucket. I opened multiple tabs. One second, let me. So now I created this bucket. Now I can select here while doing a replication, right? While doing a replication, yes, now it got refreshed. Now this is my destination. Now I'm trying to create a replication. But one important thing to be remembered, guys, versioning should be enabled if you want to do the replication. Versioning should be enabled if you want to do the replication. So we have enabled the versioning in the destination also. Now you define one IAM rule for that. So it will replicate the bucket. Now I have created a replication rule. I have created a replication rule. Now whatever we have in a source bucket, this is source bucket. Whatever we upload to source bucket, that will be replicated in a destination bucket, this bucket. But if you observe, in my source bucket already I have one object. If you observed in my source bucket, I already have one object. Why it is not replicated in destination? Why it is not replicated? The objects will be replicated only after you created a replication rule. So when this object I have uploaded, when I have uploaded this object to this, before creating a replication or after creating a replication? This object when I have uploaded before creating a replication. So these objects will not be replicated. So let me upload now in the source. Let me upload some file now. Same name also fine. Same object I am uploading again after creating a replication in the source bucket. Now if you see, after some time, I can see that in a destination, it will be replicated. It will be replicated here after some time. That object, whatever we have uploaded in source, that will be replicated. It's a duplication. Now you can see, I have not uploaded to this one manually. It's replicated. So this is replication rule. Now coming to the interview questions, guys, these are the common questions. What is the file limit in S3? What is the file limit in S3? File limit or object limit? So what is the object limit in S3? Right, file limit 5000 GB, or we call it as 5 TB. What is the meaning of it? Is it a S3 bucket limit? Is this S3 bucket limit, or is it the file, the object, the one object, the individual object? It's an individual object. The file size is this one maximum. And again, guys, from GUI, right, you cannot upload that much capacity of file. If you see from GUI, you can upload only maximum this one 160 GB of file. To upload a file larger than this, we have to do using AWS CLI, SDK, or API. But the S3 limit is 5 TB. So what are the use cases for S3? What type of data we can maintain in S3, right? Best place to maintain application logs. Best place to maintain our application logs. So the best place to maintain application logs. Best place to maintain your application images, documents, videos, our application static content. Static content. So suppose you have one application. Let me take this application, guys. Everyone watch Netflix, right? Everyone will watch Netflix. What is Netflix basically? So everyone watches Netflix, right? So this Netflix is basically a video streaming company, right? So Netflix has some application. They have developed some application, and that application will be running in multiple servers. Where let's be it a container or servers, right? You have a load balancer for that application. The users are accessing via load balancer. There are multiple servers for that application Netflix, whether it will be a server or container. Your Netflix application is running in multiple servers. This is your, let's assume this is your application server. Let's assume there are multiple servers. So that Netflix application is running in this server. People are accessing via load balancer. Netflix has a lot of files like audio files, video files, right? Lot of audio files, video files. Is it possible to package that application with all the static content and deploy? Suppose Netflix, let's take an example of Netflix itself, right? Is it possible to package all the static files as part of your deployment package and deploy? That is static content. I don't want static content to be in all the servers. So what can we do in this scenario, right? I can have all my static content in S3. I can have all my static content in S3. Then I develop one application like HTML, right? Here I can directly refer that link. I can refer that link, the object links here. that whatever video, audio links, right? So we have a code here, but from where the data will be rendered, right? We have only code here. We don't have a static files as part of your application. The data is part of S3, right? So this data, the files will be rendered or streamed from this data. So S3, I can call it as a data lake where I can maintain my data and I can stream, I can access from anywhere. I no need to mount this to any device, right? So if you see, right, the Netflix is using object storage in the background to maintain all the images, videos, static content. So that the static content will be rendered from S3. In the code, they can refer this object URLs so that it will be rendered from S3. The data, the static content will be rendered from S3. Your application is referring the objects from S3. And it is also best place to maintain the log files, application log files. Like if you want to maintain last 10 years of log files, you can maintain in S3 bucket. And there is a one more service. I will not call it as a service, that is a device. We have one more way of transferring or moving data from one data center to other data center. There is a service, I call it as a device, Snowball. AWS Snowball. So suppose you are trying to migrate your infrastructure from on-premise to cloud. Suppose you are having an on-premise infrastructure, on-premise data center. You are having an on-premise data center. Your data is in your own data center. Now you are planning to migrate to cloud. And you have petabytes of data. You have petabytes of data. Is it possible to, transfer the data over network? You have very huge data. Now you are migrating to cloud. Your data is in your own data center, right? It's not possible to migrate your data within less span of time, huge data, right, over network. It will take lot of time. So AWS has one service called Snowball, right? It's a physical data transport solution. Physical data transport solution. So if you want to migrate huge data from data center to the cloud or cloud to the data center, data transport from one place to another place, then you can use Snowball. So that is not a service, kind of a service, that is kind of a request you are trying to raise with AWS. So AWS team will physically send the device. It will be something like this, guys. The device will be something like this. It will be very huge in size. Data transport solution that we can securely transfer data from in and out of the cloud, from data center to the cloud or cloud to the data center. Basically, it's a device, physical device. So physically, this device will be use, we can use this device to transfer the data from data center to the cloud. It will be something like this. It will be very huge in size. So AWS team will physically send this device to, when you raise a request, Snowball request, they will physically send this device to your data center. You can connect this to your data center and copy the data. Then you can move this device to the cloud, AWS data center. So we can track each and every phase of this here, right? You have to raise a request. You need to create a job, that's Snowball, right? You need to create a job so that they will physically send, right? You need to raise request where you want to import the data, right? So you have to raise a request so that physically they will send this device and you can copy the data and import the data to AWS. This is for physical data transport solution. So SSDs will be used in most of the cases. EBS also will use SSDs for high performance. For low performance, magnetic, right? Guys, in future, AWS is planning to withdraw HDD storages. Now AWS is recommended to use SSD storages, right? So that is the physical hardware they are using in the background. Okay. So if you see something like less performance, less cost, magnetic. These are the physical storage hardware which they will be using in the background. So this is about storage services which we have in AWS, guys. Tomorrow we are going to start very important topic. As a DevOps engineer, we have to understand what is load balancer and how to create a load balancer in AWS. So tomorrow session is very important topic which we are going to discuss. We will deploy our application. I will deploy some application, some sample application in Tomcat, 2 servers or 3 servers, whatever you want to deploy. So we will try to load balance our application. As of now, we are directly accessing our Tomcat server, right? So tomorrow what we do? We will have an application server and we will create a load balancer for our application. And we will try to access our application via load balancer. So tomorrow we'll see how to create a load balancer, how to attach our application servers to load balancer, right? So we'll try to discuss about load balancing tomorrow. Very important concept, whatever we are going to cover tomorrow. As a DevOps engineer, we should understand how the end user request will reach the application server via load balancer. So we'll continue tomorrow, guys. If you have any questions, any queries, feel free to ask in the Skype group or chat. So let me share the running notes. I think someone is asking running notes. Guys, are you able to recover the server? If you lost the PEM file, have you anyone like tried? Or if you want, let me know. I will share the instructions, like at least some kind of a steps how you can do. In the interview, they are asking that question, guys. You no need to do live. You no need to do live, but at least you should be able to explain the steps what I have explained yesterday. Is anyone able to do that? Okay, let me share the steps at least so that you can try. Okay, we'll continue tomorrow on load balancing, guys. Okay, thank you. I'm stopping the session for today. We'll continue tomorrow. Guys, we started AWS first because if I directly go to Docker and Kubernetes, right, you may not understand few concepts. When I go for a Kubernetes, I will create load balancer, I will create some IAM roles, I will create some auto scaling groups, right? If I directly go for a Docker and Kubernetes, you will not able to understand few topics. That's why we are starting AWS first. Then we are going for Docker. Okay? We'll continue tomorrow, guys. I see already people are not joining the classes. I see only 39, 40 people are joining the classes. I don't know what is the problem for with the people. They don't want to wake up early, 6 o'clock. No one will have office, right? So we cannot help with those kind of people. So I appreciate whatever people, whoever is attending the classes regularly. Okay. So try to practice whatever we are discussing, so that it will be very easy for you to understand the subsequent classes. Exactly, Paramveer. They have a secure job, and they don't have a fear of losing the job. Exactly. Thank you, guys. We'll continue tomorrow. I will share the running notes.